Welcome to the Tea Grannies. I'm Elise.
And I'm Maria. Today we're going to chat about the nitty-gritty of publishing with a special guest. So pour yourself a cup of tea and let's get started.
I can feel her fingers as they dance lazily down my arm, leaving a tingling sensation in their wake. Skavia, not today. I shift my body away from the woman at my side. The quiet rustle of our blanket is followed by a cold hand on my back. Reina, my love, please talk to me. We are partners and your input is just as important on issues like these. I look at her, green eyes with flecks of gold staring back, concern radiating from them. I tuck a strand of charcoal-colored hair behind her ear before just cupping her cheek. You know I don't like to bring political issues into our bedroom. But you're not going to be able to sleep again. If you have an idea, I want to know about it. I let out a sigh and look up at the ceiling, the singular small candle sending shadows dancing. I don't think we can handle the Prince of Yarn's request, sending more Accio down over what is nothing more than rumor and from fishermen, no less. Any large creature will scare people, especially if it's flying. Maybe we should move up the next Hefos. We need more Accio to keep everything and everyone under control. We can't advance them again. The last time we did the Accio weren't prepared, and people got the idea that we were desperate. Aren't we? The rumors and sightings are getting out of control, and we've sent everyone we can without compromising the castle. As I looked at the woman laying beside me, I couldn't help but admire the passion with which she spoke. My hand reached out and gently caressed her face. My, you really are beautiful. Come on, we should get some sleep. If we continue to debate, neither of us will find rest this night.
So the intimacy between these two characters is really, really lovely. It's very well portrayed in their dialogue and in just the consistency of the gentle touches between them, even when they're kind of trying to put the other person at a distance at the very beginning. They're still very soft about it, and it's obvious that they really care for each other, and I appreciate how that's been integrated into this page. I think there's just enough imagery to paint a picture without it being a main focus, which I think works well for the scene. The rest of my feedback is going to linger on the plot a little bit more, and that's because on that front I feel pretty lost. There's some fantasy names, some terms that are tossed in here that I didn't have any context for going in. And so for a first page especially, it feels really early for that kind of a political conversation to come up, just because I don't know who these people are. I don't know what kind of world they live in. Is it a fantasy world? I think it is because of the large flying creatures, but I actually don't even have that to ground me. And this honestly didn't feel like a first page. It felt like we were jumping right into the middle of a story and that we were missing some pretty important context. So I had a hard time feeling grounded. Another piece that I'm not totally up to speed about is like, we know the characters are stressed. We can see enough of that in how the scene plays out. But I don't understand what they're stressed about because I don't know anything about them yet. Like, maybe one of them's a queen or something like that. And then some prince is making a request of them, and that's causing some political difficulties. But that's the kind of thing that I feel like we need a bit more answers on before diving into this kind of a conversation. And because of that missing context, the dialogue ends up feeling a bit flat or maybe contrived. Whereas I feel like if I knew the characters better before diving into this, those words might come across a bit differently. So yeah, my main thing on this is for a first page, I'm not connected enough to the plot to follow what's going on. That doesn't mean that this scene can't be the opening. But I do think that plot aspect needs to be handled differently in order for this to land properly and for the reader to really ground themselves in it enough to want to carry on.
Yeah, so I agree with everything Elise said, like I always do. Almost always. So I find it a little tough to give feedback on the plot. I feel like this first page is mostly dialogue. And it doesn't, like Elise said, doesn't feel like a first page. So it's kind of making it hard to determine what the stakes are and what the world is that we're in. I do get also fantasy vibes from it, especially with the politics and things like that. But I think your first page should have I mean, maybe not all of these components. I don't want to say for sure you need all of these components, but I feel like you should check in with yourself and say, do I have plot, setting, and character?
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a ton of each, but it needs to be a little bit so that the reader has somewhere to get anchored and get going on your story. So we don't have enough of any of those to understand what's going on with this page. So I would definitely recommend starting the story earlier. I usually tell people that they're starting way too early, but I feel like here we're actually starting too late. We need a little bit more so we can get an idea of the characters and the world and like what the stakes are.
Yeah.
But I will say I do agree that the intimacy was really beautiful. I liked the word choices for color, and I'm intrigued by the mention of the sightings and rumors.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's going to be a lot of really cool political layers in this.
Yeah.
You just can't throw us in with the dialogue on the first page because we don't know anybody yet, and we don't know. It's too hard to find our feet. It's like showing up in the middle of a conversation about a topic you don't know about. You just stand there. You're like, oh, I really don't know still. Somebody fill me in. Again, if we had back cover copy, it would be different, but I still agree like that it needs to start a bit earlier and we need a bit more plot, bit more setting. And then I think you'd be good to go after that.
Welcome to the listeners, take 2. For the first time in the history of the Tea Grannies, possibly, we forgot to hit record. And yes, we can tell the listeners that. That's fine. So this is our second attempt. If the first few minutes feel a little dry, it's because we're doing it again. But we are excited for this episode. We usually kind of recycle some of the same guests we've had because they always say yes, and we love them for that. But we have a new guest today, and I'm very excited to introduce Kalie Holford. Kalie's a university student studying fine arts in British Columbia, where she lives with her family and 3 puppies. She loves Mamma Mia, country music, and love songs and stories. And her passion is writing books about messy girls like us who make mistakes, learn to love, and grow alongside each other. And her debut, The Last Love Song, features all of these things. Can confirm it's a great book. And when she's not writing, she can be found making graphic designs, studying, reorganizing her bookshelves like the rest of us for the 1,000th time, or making her way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe with her boyfriend. You can find her on TikTok and Instagram at Kalie Holford, and we'll put the links in the description. But welcome, Kalie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Last take, I followed this podcast since we met in creative writing class, and I'm really excited to get to be on it today.
I don't think that will ever get old. Hearing people say that they listen to us just yap is wild.
Or if I know someone and they're like, oh yeah, you have a podcast, right? I'm like, people know about it? Such a weird feeling. All right. Well, I have not read Kalie's book because I'm the worst, but we're going to jump into some questions. So your latest book, The Last Love Song, came out last year. Tell us and the listeners what this book was about.
So this book is a young adult coming of age contemporary with some romance. It's dual timeline, dual POV, about a girl who finds her late country star mother's diary and embarks on the scavenger hunt of her past to piece it together and decide whether or not to leave her small town with her kind of sort of girlfriend. And it's got some Mamma Mia meets Taylor Swift vibes that I'm really excited about. And yeah, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Those are like the perfect vibes. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Mamma Mia, Taylor Swift, Mariah.
Mm-hmm.
Read some more YA. Yeah.
I know, right? I'm like, I never read YA anymore, but every once in a while one comes along where I'm like, all right, this one is probably it.
This one is it. Yeah. I enjoyed reading it recently because I did the classic thing that book lovers do where I picked it up at your very first book event, book signing ever, which was super fun to see you at, and put it on my shelf and was like, yep, I'm going to read you. And then it sat there for a year, which is like the natural shelf life of a new book. And then I read it. And I'm really glad that I did. I'm glad that we get to now ask you questions about it because that is just really fun for me. And I'm really glad that you're here. But my actual question for you is, so you published The Last Love Song while working with your first agent. And that's different than the agent you're working with now. I know things have been a bit of a roller coaster. So I'd love to hear more about your experience and how you ended up being represented by your first agent for your debut.
Yeah. One, I'm really glad I'm not the only person who leaves like new books on my shelves for a year. I buy them, I have to own them immediately, and then I just do the book medicine.
Yeah.
I keep them yet. But yeah, so I actually started querying and sent my first query when I was 12. And my writing journey kind of started with a bet that I made with my mom. She's also a writer, but she's always been very adamant that I needed to have my own journey, own friends. She didn't want, because writing can be hard. You get a lot of rejections, and she was really worried because I wasn't even a teenager yet. She's like, this is going to break your soul, and I don't want to be part of what breaks your soul. But it didn't. It actually didn't. It taught me so many things. And so my mom, I think, wanted just some time to write and had a 12-year-old daughter who is very involved. And so she told me, okay, go write a book. Because I said, Mom, can I come to a writing conference with you? And she's like, go write your book. And if you finish it, sure, you can come. And then I think she forgot about that. And then, so I immediately went upstairs, grabbed a notebook, wrote a 50,000 word middle grade by hand. And I came back to her near the time the writing conference was, and I was like, here it is. Can I come now? And she was like, oh, darn it, I did say that. So I came with her to this writing conference, which was my first ever writing conference, was Surrey International Writers Conference. And they actually had a young writers discount, which was great. And so I went to this when I was 12, and I got to sit down with an author and talk about a picture book I'd written. And then I got to take this middle grade fantasy book that I wrote, and I got to sit down with a literary agent and pitch it to her. And I'll always remember that, I was a pretty small 12-year-old. So this 12-year-old girl walks up and sits down in the chair in front of her. Didn't even faze her. She's just like, hey, what's your book about?
Aww.
And I always have so much respect and love for her for that. And that's really good because she's actually my agent now.
Full circle.
That's amazing. So amazing.
Yeah. And so she wasn't my first agent. The agent who I started with, I signed with in my last week of high school. My goal had been to go off the stage and have a literary agent because I've been querying for 6 years, which takes everyone a different amount of time. It took me six and a half years. And I really wanted, it's this kind of, you make yourself artificial milestones that really nothing's going to happen if you don't meet them, but you kind of get them in your head. And I did actually meet that, and I got my agent the week I graduated. And we worked together. She sold my debut, but then publishing has a lot of turnover, a lot of unpredictability. So there were a lot of circumstances that led me to where I am today, which is with my third agent, who is actually the first agent I ever sent anything to.
So
I think that's so perfect.
Good. Yeah. I don't think that story can't get old. The full circle element of it is so fun.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
So you talked a little about the turnover and the chaos in the publishing industry. So can you tell us what your debut year as an author looked like with all that happening?
Yeah, so I haven't actually talked about this a ton. One day I'll probably write a blog post about it. Oh, and I wanted to mention one of my agent's other clients. She's wonderful. Her name's Dahlia Adler. You might know her from LGBTQ Reads, which I love with all my heart. But she has a really amazing blog post about querying agents after you've already been represented by one, whether it's your second or third. And I didn't talk a ton about that experience here, but if you're needing it or wanting to know more about that or going through it yourself, she has an amazing blog post that I told Elise that if you can't find, I will send.
Yes. We'll ensure that the link makes it into our description so that we can all read this, because I think it's a good resource to have.
Yeah. But yeah, so debut year was really hard. There were so many things I was so incredibly grateful for. I was part of a creative writing class, a novel writing class, where I met Elise that semester, and a bunch of the people from that class carpooled down to my launch because my book came out the day we finished our semester. So it was like a little celebration, which was fun. And so there were things like that stand out so starkly to me as these amazing things that happened during debut year. Seeing my book in a bookstore, signing it. There were so many of those things, selling foreign rights. But there was a lot of hard stuff too, between turnover and The Last Love Song is a book that's very hopeful, and it focuses on a lot of positive, happy things, I think, but it also focuses very deeply on loss. That's something that I became very acquainted with in the year since the book came out. I had a series of 4 consecutive family emergencies in my debut year. So amidst all this celebrating and this lifelong dream, it's been just constantly being hit with one heartbreak after another. And that's something that I think the last love song helped me learn how to cope with before I even had to.
Mm.
So my debut year taught me a lot about the things I wrote about. And I'm very grateful for a lot of stuff that happened. And having just lost my grandmother, who was a big part of this book, I'm really grateful that she got to see my first book come out. And I know that's something I'm lucky to have had that a lot of people didn't get. So as much as I miss her right now, there's so much I'm grateful for from this last year.
That's a really emotional year.
Mhm.
Like, I think it would have been anyway, but having all the extra family stress on top of it must have been really tough.
Yeah, I lost my grandma, who was my best friend, 2 days before the 1-year anniversary of the last love song, and I was like, a year.
Yeah, I feel like good things and bad things all come together. You can be doing, like you said, achieving a lifelong dream, and shit just keeps happening, though.
Yeah, and
it's so unfortunate.
That's the thing that's hard to keep in mind, because I do it too with social media. And you know, on my social media, it's very bright and pastel and pink and happy, and you wouldn't know all the loss that's happened behind the scenes past year.
Yes, we end up having to deal with kind of the full spectrum of emotion any given week, depending on what's going on. So, and I think that often gets lost in our big dreams and goals and milestones of like, I want to publish a book, I want to do these things. Okay, it's my debut year. It's going to be so exciting. It's also just going to be life, and life happens, and sometimes life happens to us really hard. And I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. I think I remember, were both of your grandmothers at the debut event that I was at? Yeah, I remember them sitting together, and I remember you kind of mentioning them when you were chatting with the interviewer, and that was really, really, really sweet. And I'm tearing up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Mia has 2 grandmothers, not just because I love sapphic rap and am bisexual myself and love queer normative narratives, but also because my grandmothers are these really strong influences in my life that, you know, I had my mom, and I had them, and I had some great aunts, and it's just really the women in my life and my dad, who's amazing, who have really like raised me, and they were such a big part of it. That's who Mia's grams and Nana are inspired by, and that's what I call my grandmas.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Oh. And I love their characters in the last love song, or the characters inspired by them, I should say. They're a really nice core piece of the story. So if you love grandmothers, and if you don't, I question your sanity, read the last love song. Okay, we do have more questions. Thank you for sharing. That's a lot, and I appreciate you and your openness on this podcast of listeners who you have never met.
I've never shared any of that, so this is an exclusive sharing.
We're like celebrity gossip now. Like exclusive, you heard it here first.
Oh man,
that's really cool. I love hearing about writers' lives and like how the book impacted them, the book that they wrote, how did it impact them, what did they learn from it, and all that stuff. I think it's really cool, because don't we all write a little bit to like work through the stuff going on in our head? Like, it's
absolutely,
it's great.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like based on the seminar class we were in together, Kalie, you probably experienced me kind of talking through that for myself, kind of for the first time, because the stuff that I wrote before the book that I wrote for that class has all been very like, don't put yourself in your work. You don't want to be a self-insert. You need to avoid that at all costs. Don't make yourself too recognizable. And I was very concerned about that until recently. And that project that I wrote for John's class was like the first time I was like, no, okay, I'm doing this intentionally. I am taking these pieces of myself, and here we go. We're gonna go on a little fantasy adventure and see what that does. And it was very rewarding. It was a really cool experience, actually.
I love that so much, and I think that is something that we're taught to like fear. But I think there's a big difference between a self-insert and putting pieces of your heart on the page.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So 6 years of querying. I wanted to ask this earlier. It's not in our list, but do you remember how many queries you sent in that time?
Oh.
Do you have a number? I always love to know the number.
I would estimate over 200.
Okay.
Because I know the book before the last love song, I sent 84 queries for that book alone.
Wow.
And I queried like 3 or 4 books. And I know I sent about probably 50 queries for the last love song. So yeah, I would estimate between 150 and 200 agents total.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah, I just haven't queried enough, clearly.
It takes a long
Right?
amazing success stories, which are so wonderful, but sometimes it takes a really long time, and it doesn't mean you're the worst writer. It just means it's the market, it's the people you're sending to. It's not quite the right time or the right fit, and that's just what happens. Like it wasn't until my third time querying that I actually ended up with so many choices that I was actually a little starstruck, because I was like, I can't believe I have the choice between all these amazing people. What do I do? And so it's so much timing and right person, right time.
Yeah, that's also a very good point to keep in mind, which I try to keep in mind when I'm looking at those numbers of like the numbers don't ultimately mean all that much. I mean, aside from the amazing amount of dedication and hard work that you put into it, because that's quite the tally. But I just find, like, I really enjoy seeing the tally that people come up with, whether it's like they sent 8 and they got their agent, or they sent 800 and they got their agent. Like, regardless, there's a story there of how it came to be.
Yes.
And the number doesn't really tell the story, but it's just an interesting tidbit. So thank you for...
I like numbers too, very much. Yeah. I think in my first, I'm not sure if I think I took it down because I had to switch website platforms, but I had a How I Got My Agent post and did have my numbers in different projects.
Yeah. Cool.
That's a good idea. I don't know if I want to know my numbers for real. Like, you know, I'm sure they're all in there in my query tracker, but like, do I really want to know?
Okay.
I want to know.
Okay. So the last love song is a young adult queer romance and coming of age story. So have you drafted books in other genres before? You mentioned fantasy earlier, so I'd like to hear more about that. And then my other question is, what's your favorite genre to write in and why?
Okay, that's fun. So I started in middle grade fantasy. Those were my first 2 books I queried. And then I remember my first ever young adult contemporary romance I finished on my 16th birthday.
Oh, cute.
I have a lot of fun timeline things like that, and I was so determined to finish it that day. And that was one that I was sending to a mentorship program. So ever since I turned 16 and I had just gone through my first heartbreak and felt all those emotions, and I really started reading young adult contemporary to I didn't have a very wide network of friends at the time. That came with age, and now I have a wonderful network, but it was like the fictional characters kind of helped me talk through all these feelings I had, and I was like, I want to do that too, and I want to talk to my own fictional characters about this. And I never really looked back. And young adult contemporary, I love kind of genre weaving where it's like a little bit of mystery, a little bit of coming of age, a lot of romance, and that's kind of what I write. And there's something about kind of imagining someone's life in this world and what they're doing that I really like. And I love fantasy. I love reading fantasy. One day I'd love to write another fantasy, but contemporary coming of age romance really just strikes a chord with me at this, and I think it'll always be very special to me because that's the first book that ever really went anywhere. So I love it, and I think that people a lot of the time underestimate teenagers.
Absolutely.
I was a teenager who was writing for teenagers, and I was feeling so frustrated because I'm like, no, like, teenagers are cool, they're complex, like, there's a reason that we love YA and so many people love YA. And I just think there's something so special and important about that time of your life.
It's a very formative time. You never forget it.
It is. And so many of those books that I read as a teenager formed who I was. So I think both reflecting on that and the last love song, I finished writing it the summer of my grade 11 year, right before I went into grade 12. So it was, it's about a girl who graduates high school, and it was written by a girl who was about to graduate high school.
Perfect timing. Yeah, and I think that comes through really powerfully in the book, because that's one of the main things that Mia and her kind of sort of maybe girlfriend are both kind of going through, is like they're graduating, and Mia doesn't know what to do. Like, she's so lost and doesn't have it all figured out, like most of us. There's the oddballs, like my older brother, who's like, yep, I'm going to university straight out, and I'm going to be there for 4 years, then I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to be there for 10 years. And I'm like, I didn't do that, so what's wrong with me? But that's not That's not
Because
the,
he's a psycho. You're normal.
because he's a smart cookie and he made good decisions and that great. But like, I don't think that's the kind of standard. Most people are kind of, they get there and like, now what? Because there's too many choices. So I think, yeah, you did a really good job of exploring that through the characters' experiences and conversations with each other. So
Thank you. I don't actually think about Mia and Britt's experiences graduating in juxtaposition a lot, but I think like my own experience was very similar to like Britt's, where I was like had a lot of similar values and goals. But Mia was kind of like that other side, the like other side of the coin where you're exploring.
yeah, really good job on that. Our next question, getting back into the kind of publishing side of things, since this is a publishing nitty-gritty episode. So having gone through seeing your first book traditionally published, I love to ask people this. We asked Eileen, another author, a similar question about her publishing journey. Is there anything in this process through traditional publishing that you've learned as an author about writing or publishing or both, whatever comes to mind, that you wished your younger self had known before you started?
That's a hard question. And I know I got the question, but it's still hard. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around it because there's so much that I wish I'd known, but also all things that I don't think I could have known without it, because there's so many intricacies. And I think we need more like nitty gritty looks at publishing because it's such a complicated industry. And I think that one thing I wish I'd known was that like kind of timing thing where things take time, and that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen for you. But like, I queried for 6.5 years. I was on sub with my book for 9 months before it sold. Things take time, and you hear a lot of really quick stories, which are wonderful and deserved, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to get there if it takes longer. And it's kind of weird, I guess, because I'm 22 for me to say it took a bit longer, but I'm a decade into my publishing journey. And I had my first book come out. So when you look at it instead of age with like that kind of like numbers of like years, it did take a while. And I'm really grateful I got here. And I don't think that if I hadn't have gone through all those stages, I would know what I know now. And yeah, so just that. And also something that I would say that I wish I knew and wish I could figure out now, because it's so hard to wrap your head around, is once you start chasing publication, and a lot of it is this exterior validation of people loving the book, and you get so attached to just seeing people fall in love with that story, which is so natural because you write this piece of your heart that you want people to connect with. But once you start chasing that publication journey, it's really hard to get back to just that love of writing that got you there. And that's something I struggle immensely with, is putting aside the industry and just getting back to me and the page. And it's something that I haven't found a solution for yet, but that I wish I'd kind of go back and tell my younger self, just like, it's going to get so wonderful, but it's also going to get hard, and it's all worth it.
I think I already struggle with that, and I'm not published because I'll be working on my book and I'll be like, well, is this going to be good? What will people think of this scene? And that's one of the things that actually keeps me from writing. And so I've started actually journaling first before I start writing, and it seems to get me into a different headspace where I don't feel like I'm thinking about the outside world so much. I'm just thinking about the words on the page and stuff. And that seems to be a good thing. But I do like have to remind myself that I'm writing for me first and foremost, but it's very difficult. And I know that I'm going to struggle even harder with that once the book is out, because I just can't help it. My brain's like, oh, let's think about the business side of things.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I don't need to have a book out to feel that. Like, it's more of an awareness than an experience even. Like, as soon as you're aware of the publishing industry and how books work, it's hard to get out of that mindset. So I think that, like, that makes sense. And as far as when the first book comes out, there's this term in publishing, the sophomore slump, that's really real, because it's like a whole nother bout of that.
And I'm hoping I have like a couple books on like the back burner so that I can try not to do that, because I know I'll talk myself out of being able to write.
I have friends who did that, who I have one friend who, like, one of her books that she got an agent for, she kind of had it on the back burner because it didn't sell her initially, and then she sold her next beautiful book, and she sent her first one to her editor, and they're like, wow, we love this. And so her second book was actually her book before this one, but she had it on the back burner, and now they're both out, and they're both brilliant.
Yeah. That's
the dream. That's great.
That's right. That's the dream.
So
That's
I think
it.
that, and I also I think that I wish I'd done that. I wish I could go back and write through the waiting so that I'd
Right through the wait. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
that's a great advice. Right
Yes.
through the wait. That's a yes.
I've
love
heard that advice a few times from people that have gone through publishing of like when you're querying, when you're waiting for responses, when you're on sub and you're waiting for responses, write something. Distract yourself by writing something. And I think that is really great. I think that is what would work for me. But we can't know until we're there. So
It's really hard advice to follow because you get so invested in that book and it's like this piece of your heart's out in the world and you kind of have to get it's out there. Yeah. And so you're trying to like write something new with like half a heart.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a good description.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this in terms of like I self-published a trilogy just like to figure out like how do you do this, basically. That's what the Nymph Keepers was. Like, okay, what are all the steps? What are all the files that I need? What's all the stuff that I need to do this? And I think I went through a similar thing where like those books were out and I didn't write for a little bit because I was so distracted by that and people's responses to it. And then when I finally was like, okay, I've done this thing, but I'm not done yet. Like I want to write more still. I don't remember if it was hard to get back into it, but I do feel like I have changed genres or like the kind of things that I'm writing is slightly different. And I veered younger, like not quite middle grade, but young YA, and just leaning into that a bit more heavily I feel like that's what I've done. Maybe I have the wrong sense of it, but I'm
Hey, if it works for you, it's not wrong.
Yes.
My life advice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I say this as someone who's like, I write, everyone's like, you're a fantasy writer. I'm like, yeah, but I've got this really cool sci-fi draft that I'm actually more excited about. That's everyone's going to have to see at some point. And I have a contemporary romance that's like, edit me. And I'm like, no, not right now. So I think that's what I do when I get stuck. I usually just jump genres and then that helps.
That's a good skill to have.
Yeah, it's fun too. I mean, it's just like if you read in a lot of different genres, you're like, I'm going to jump into this. But I do know that my sci-fi one needs a lot of work. I'm not a technology person, as Elise is laughing so hard right now because she knows it to be true.
You know what? The best books need the most work. The one I just wrote, it took so much work. It was the hardest thing I've ever written, and I love it.
Oh yeah, that's always how it is. Yeah. Okay. So I have a question about your dual timeline in this book. So I haven't read it, but I'm going to act like I know what I'm talking about here.
That's fair.
So you had a dual timeline for Mia and her mother, and they had some pretty complex overlaps. So how did you keep those two timelines straight so that the reader was reading about Mia's mom at the right time? I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So that was actually part of my journey of getting my first agent was fixing that. And I forgot to mention that, but so sometimes you'll send a book to an agent and they'll love it, but they won't be ready to take it on until they like maybe it needs a bit too much work for them to commit to it because, you know, agents, they make their living supporting authors, but they've still got to prioritize their time and they've got to make sure that they're doing what's feasible for them. So I had an agent who I loved who she sent me a note and she's like, hey, do you want to hop on the phone? Because I don't think this is quite ready, but I really love this and something about it I just can't let go of yet. And I was freaking out. And so that was for The Last Love Song. And originally when I wrote The Last Love Song, it alternated between Mia and Tori every single chapter. Which is very different than the way it is now. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say when Mia finds a diary entry from Tori, that's when you get her POV. So it's very linked with the kind of plot element of the diary. That's what switches you between the two characters.
Yeah.
And originally that wasn't the case. So when I talked to this agent, she was like, I think it would be stronger if you had Mia find Tori's story and the reader discovers it alongside Mia, because there were times in the narrative where the reader knew more than Mia did at that point. It was making it more complicated to follow along and her. And so I dove back in and I had 22 chapters from Tori's POV. And for context, there are 8 in the finished book. But the really complicated thing was the arc of Tori's story and the narrative that was covered needed to be the same because it was the same story that she went through, but I had to take that story from 22 chapters worth of content to 8.
That would kill Elise.
So when they say kill your darlings, I have a lot of darlings that didn't make it.
I love how Mariah's just staring there, like sitting there staring at me like, you thought you knew how to cut content? You don't know how to cut shit.
I will say
I'm here for you for that.
I'm pretty like, I can't ever give myself a compliment, but the one thing that I'm really sure about is my ability to cut things because I've had to cut that. I've had to cut, one time I did a pass of the last love song because it was too long and I cut 3,000 words in one go.
That's amazing.
And so this book has been like cut down, shaved, like so many darlings were lost, but I think it's better for it. So that was really hard to balance. Like I had to do a full revision, and when I sent that revision to the agent, she actually emailed me that night and she's like, I can't put this down. I'll be back to you soon. So I spent the whole weekend stressing, and then Monday I woke up with an offer.
Oh my God.
And that was really wild. But if I hadn't have figured out how to make Tori's story intertwine with Mia's better, I don't know that I would have gotten to that offer point. So I was really lucky that she took a chance of being like, I think I could make it better, and gave me the chance to do so.
Yeah. And that was the first agent that you did sign with, or is it someone else?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was my first agent.
Yeah.
She's not in publishing anymore, but I was with her for 2 years, and she started supporting my writing when I was like 17. So I have a lot of respect for her, and
So sweet.
I'm very grateful that she supported my first book. One of the people the last love song's actually dedicated to is her. So
oh, well, she deserves it, and I like that.
That's so
sweet.
The book would not be the book it is without that R&R that I did before she signed me.
Oh,
that's amazing.
That kind of is really comforting in a way to hear, because like when I've heard people talk about revise and resubmit stuff, that just sounds so stressful to me, of like I'm going to put all this work in and they might still say no.
Yes, that's the terrifying part. But I think the part you hold on to, and the part that I had to hold on to, is you do it if you feel like it's going to make the story better.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that that was the right move for the story. So even if she hadn't have signed it, I would have been sending to more agents with a stronger story.
That's
which
awesome.
Is really because obviously you want that maybe to turn into a yes, not a no. I also think the cool thing about R&Rs is someone's like seeing something and they want to go forward with it. They want to click. And if it doesn't, that's not a reflection of anything you did wrong, but that stress is actually like, it's part of a kind of experience that's probably going to make your book more akin to what you want it to be. And if it doesn't, then you definitely shouldn't take that R&R.
Yeah. Really good point.
Plus, this is a good example of like writing maybe a solitary activity, the actual act of writing, but it really does take more than just the writer to get the story out in the world in the way that is best for the story, right? It takes the whole team.
My acknowledgements for the last love song is probably 6 pages, which I got a lot of grief for. But this book has been like kind of cradled in the hands of so many people, have taken a chance on it. My critique partners, my friends, like there are so many people who have read this and given just these little tidbits that without that little piece, the book wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I love about workshopping. That's so fun. All right. We have a couple more questions for you. This is kind of the last publishing debut adjacent one, but curious about what's next for you. As the last love song, it's now out in the world, making its mark. What does the life of Kalie look like? Are you able to, I think you're still in school, but are you able to write more than you were before? Like, yeah, how's that going?
So also a kind of complicated question. So I'm actually finishing my bachelor's degree this summer semester.
Me too.
Oh my gosh, winning again. Okay, now I'm excited for that. But I'm starting my Master of Library and Information Studies in the fall.
Oh, exciting.
And I'm very excited for that. So right now, as I finish my degree, I'm taking kind of double a full-time course load of condensed classes.
Oh my God.
And so I don't have a ton of writing time right now, but
Uh-huh.
summer I plan to just sit and write. And I will say, I say I don't have a lot of writing time, but I'm still working on the book because I can't put it down. And so I'm hoping that as I finish my bachelor's, like I've learned a lot of skills throughout university about how to manage that time because so much of writing is balance because most people don't write full time. They have a lot of other things that they do to like support the lifestyle of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one day, like if my books go really well, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm pursuing these other bookish passions to kind of keep my writing afloat.
Mm.
And so yes and no. I have more time and less time, but I make the time. And I think that's the most important thing is making that time
Yeah.
to write. So I'm working on something I'm really excited about right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of got similar genre elements of mystery, romance, contemporary. And I'm really excited for that one to go out into the world and hopefully find its home.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm hoping it'll land somewhere great. And it's also really exciting because the book is coming out in Portuguese in Brazil on June 5th. And that's been really amazing to see too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really exciting.
That's so cool. Yeah, so exciting.
I remember a chat we had. I think we were still in class together. So this was before the book even came out. And we were talking through some different things that you were going through on the publishing side. And we were talking about foreign rights and like the importance of getting on top of selling those kind of early on in the debut process. So it's really exciting for me to now hear like, hey, it's coming out in Portuguese somewhere. And that is really cool. I love seeing that come around.
And I'll be honest, as much as I love publishing, like I love being part of the publishing industry,
Mm-hmm.
I still have no idea how my foreign rights got sold, but I'm grateful they did. I'm grateful they did. And
I love it.
It'll be out in Brazil, and then sometime in the next year or two, it should be out in Spain too.
Amazing.
Awesome. That's so amazing.
Trusting that process.
That's hilarious.
There is a little bit of trusting the process. That's why you have an agent, right?
Yeah,
so you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty of everything.
publishing. Yeah, that's the agent's job, not your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really grateful to have a really knowledgeable, amazing agent. So I'm on my third agent, but I landed somewhere amazing where I know she's going to take care of me. So
I love to hear that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is tradition for us to ask our guests for book recommendations. So tell us some of your favorite reads lately or ever. They don't have to be recent.
Correct.
Okay. So I always prep for this question, and then every book I've ever read leaves my mind.
Yes, I'm the same.
Yeah, same.
So I'll give a couple like different like genres because we were talking about like genre flexibility and stuff, and I read in a lot of genres.
Nice.
So, for romance, which is one of my favorites to read, I read Can't Help Faking in Love by Swati Hegde recently. She's a very dear friend, and it was so fun. Every chapter starts with a little snippet line of a sitcom, and I love that because sitcoms are my life.
Cute.
And so I read that, and another release that actually came out in 2025 is On Screen and Off Again by Caitlin Cross, who's another dear friend. It's a Hollywood second chance romance that's really fun. And then in YA, two of my favorites are I Hope This Doesn't Find You and As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. I love those books so much. They like every time I say the like titles, my like heart, like I have a feeling in my heart. And that's how you know those books are so special. And so those are two I love. And then I had a friend release a middle grade fantasy inspired by Greek mythology. It's so good. It's called Rivers Spirits. It's part of the Underwild. And it's so good. It's by Shana Targosz. And so, yeah, those are a couple different, no matter what you read, there might be something there for you. And I have so many more I could say, but those are some that really stood out to me lately.
Nice. That's perfect.
I love it. It's so hard to answer that question because, like, someone on Bookstagram will ask me for a book recommendation about, you know, whatever topic, and I'm immediately like, I've never read a book before. What are you talking about? It's so embarrassing.
Where I track my I have to be careful with Goodreads because I don't like getting swept in, especially since I have a book on Goodreads now.
Yes.
But but I use Book Buddy, and it like tracks like my personal library and like which ones I've read and haven't read. And I have to do that because otherwise I'll forget and I'll be like, I haven't read a book ever.
Nothing. Yep.
That's me as well. Yep.
Oh.
I have no memory. Like, it's terrible. So yeah, it's the same thing. Like, and that's why I write my book reviews like right after I finish reading, because I will only remember a book based on vibes after that.
I need to start.
Once the review's written, that's it.
I need to start journaling and be like, I read this book. I loved this about it. So I actually remember things about the books I read.
Right.
I read them. I love them. But then I get asked and I'm like, I could not tell you.
Okay, this didn't make it into the question list, but I have to know. How well do you remember your own book? Because this is the thing I fear. Is like, I hardly remember what I'm working on half the time. So like, if someone comes up and asks you a question about your book, like, do you remember? Do you know?
Yes. So I will say, by the time, like, having gone through traditional publishing, by the time the book came out, I probably read it like 25 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I remember everything about it. I've gone into the kind of nitty gritty of my book, and I have had to adjust things so many times and read it so many times. Like, there are all these stages in traditional publishing, and even before it comes out, you'll do one final read of past pages to make sure there are no minor errors. So you become so familiar with your own book that honestly, a lot of writers say that they're just like, please, I will not read this again. I'm not like that. I really like rereading it, which is weird because I'm very critical of myself, but I like rereading it and falling back into that time in my life because there's so much of it
that's cool.
Back to touch points. So
yeah.
No, I don't forget my book because I've read it so many times that I pretty much have it memorized.
That is good to know.
I'm going to bank on that happening to me, that if I read it enough times, I will remember. And I'm kind of getting there because the one I'm working on now has like a lot of politics. And so I know I'm going to have to go through it like a million times to make sure everything makes sense. So I'm sure by then I'll have it memorized.
If you don't remember it, your critique partners might. Sometimes
that's true.
Remind me and I'll be like, oh yeah, that did happen.
No, Elise will remind me. I'll be like, maybe I should do this. And she's like, yeah, you already did that, like later in the book. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Just have your critique partners on speed dial. They can answer for you.
I love that. The only danger there is like I've read a couple drafts of some of them. So it's like, well, that might have happened in draft 1, but maybe not draft 3.
Yes.
Marie, I was just, my tangent was just like, I just read your pages for writing group this morning, and it's a draft that I've read multiple times. So I'm like really excited to get back into it, but I'm going through and adding comments, and I'm like, wait, was this in the last draft? Was it not? I don't know. I like it. Who cares? So
who cares as long as you like it? You're my ideal reader, so.
That actually just reminded me, this is the first time I've done it, but my agent gets me to track changes when I'm revising the next draft. You can actually see what you've added and what you haven't added. And it's like revolutionized my editing process because I'm like, oh, this is new, this is old. And like I save it in a new document so that I can see it all together, like without the markups.
Yep.
But I would highly recommend doing that when you're revising. It's very helpful.
Yeah, we do that for workshopping, but yeah, for revising, that's a good idea. Like I tend to write in Scrivener, but like that's where I really like to draft. I think if I'm editing, like maybe that would work better in doing it in like Word with track changes. Yeah. See, now we're just going into my brain and I'm thinking about things. So let's just.
This is good. This is what writers want to hear about.
Yeah,
it's true. And we gotta talk about our strategies because every writer is different. And like, I mean, even sometimes when I'm editing, I'm like, do other people have a better process for this? Because this feels like banging my head against a wall.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with us. And I'm adding your book to my list. Although, like I said earlier, it will probably sit on my shelf for at least a year before I read it. Though, like, this is a little secret thing that I do is like, I pretty much have a bookstore in my house. So whenever I want a book to read, I just browse. I'm like, these are all new to me. Because like I said, no memory, right? I'm like, oh, this sounds great. I don't remember buying this. So I'm going to add that to the shelf, the romance shelf, romance bookcase at this point. It's getting pretty up there.
Well, I am honored to be on the shelf. I love being on a TBR shelf, no matter how old. And thank you for having me. I had so much fun. I am really excited to have been on this. I love your podcast.
Yay.
Thank you.
It was so cool to meet you, and Elise already knows I absolutely adore her. So
I know, right? And you know what? I've heard so much about you that I was like, yes, we're finally going to have this episode. I'm so excited.
yeah, no, I'm like,
I'm not
obsessed with
ignoring you
Elise.
guys.
She's
I just
cool.
Okay, I'm blushing. I'm blushing. I want to sink into the floor. I love you. Thank you. And we would love to have you back in the future. I know.
I would love that.
Oh, good. Oh, good. And now you've said yes on a recording, so you
I
can't
have,
take it
yeah.
back.
Can't take it back.
I wouldn't take it back, but you have proof now.
I love
Yeah.
that.
I like doing that to our guests. We're like, you don't have a choice here. We're
Yeah.
going to make sure you come back.
I would be thrilled to come back anytime.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, good. I'm glad. I'm so excited. Well, we're excited to see what you do next as well. So keep us in the loop. This has been so much fun. Thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank
So
you.
good.
This was so fun.
And that's the tea on the nitty gritty of the publishing world. Thank you, Kalie, for joining us for our last episode of season 5. For more of the Tea Grannies, join our Patreon and follow us on our socials at the Tea Grannies Podcast. Happy writing.